It's Morning in America. Without further ado, we welcome back to Morning in America. Now, Senator Ted Cruz, United States Senator from Texas, member of the Senate Committee on Armed Services and the Judiciary. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Bill. It's great to be back with you.
Great to call you by that title. We had you on a lot during the campaign. It's greater having you as the Senate, but it's a little harder to get you.
Well, I appreciate all the help getting here, and I appreciate the work of just tens of thousands of grassroots activists all across Texas and all across the country who stood together and helped us win a race, which just about nobody thought we had a prayer of doing. But when the people stand together, it is a formidable thing.
Well, and they did great, and you're doing great. You know, Disraeli said once, he gave advice to a young member of Parliament. He said, debuts should be dull. You did not take that advice, Ted.
Well, you know, it's been nice and quiet, Bill. Not much of anything's been happening.
No, good for you. I think everybody, you've really raised an alarm in the land and a standard, and people have prepared to it, and given you so much applause, and I join in that group. You said something on one of our shows. I want to start with this. You said, I see around me an awakening, people, an appreciation of the things that we've lost, and a sense that we need to relearn and get this country back in shape. I accused you at the time of saying you were only looking around Texas. Do you still feel the same way, having come to the Capitol? Do you think things are moving in the right direction, deep in the American heart?
Yes and no.
It's harder from where you sit now, isn't it?
I will admit that sitting in Congress is far less inspirational than it is, traveling to VFW halls in East Texas.
Yes, sir.
As you know, there are a lot of people in Washington who've been here a real long time and are more focused on staying in power than really doing anything serious to fix the problems.
Has that surprised you?
No, but I'll tell you at the same time, the yes part, the reason I remain encouraged is that I think we've continued to see something that we started really seeing in earnest in 2010, which is a new generation of leaders stepping forward. And I think if you look at the real stars of the Republican Party, if you look at conservatives who are standing up and defending our principles and doing so in a way that is articulate, that's effective, that brings people together, whether it is Marco Rubio or Rand Paul or Mike Lee or Scott Walker, almost without exception, Pat Toomey, almost without exception, 3 years ago, not one of these guys was in office.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's a great point, and we'd add Ted Cruz to that list. Let's talk about your priorities. I know you wanted to talk about your plan here to the continuing resolution to delay funding of Obamacare. Put that in the context of your priorities. I think we have a sense of your priorities from watching what you've done the first few months, but tell us how important this is to you.
Well, in my view, the number one priority for every member of Congress, whether Republican or Democrat, should be economic growth. The most pressing economic issue right now is that our economy is stagnant. It hasn't grown in 4 years. You know, Bill, in the last 4 years, economic growth has averaged 0.8%. That's a fraction of where America's mighty economy has been historically. Since World War II, we have averaged 3.3% growth. If we don't get our economy growing and strong again, we can't solve any of these other problems. We can't get the 23 million people who are struggling to find jobs back to work. We can't solve our crushing deficits and debt. We can't maintain a strong military presence if we don't have economic strength. And so my view is all of us should focus every day on economic growth, getting back to historic levels. And so this week in the Senate, when the continuing resolution comes over, the bill that will keep government funding going, I'm introducing a bill, an amendment that I'm calling Restore Growth First. That says, look, as you know, my view is we should repeal Obamacare in its entirety.
Sure.
But at a minimum, and that was the first bill I introduced, by the way, was a bill to repeal Obamacare in its entirety. But at a minimum, even if that doesn't have the votes to pass right now, I hope it will eventually, but it doesn't have the votes to pass right now, at a minimum, we shouldn't be implementing Obamacare right now, which is going to hurt economic growth, kill jobs, pound small businesses. We should not be doing that at a time when the economy is struggling, because introducing Obamacare right now could well push us into a recession. And so the amendment says we're going to delay funding of Obamacare at least until we return to historical economic growth levels. So the economy gets back on its feet. We're not going to hit it with Obamacare when it's gasping for breath, and the last thing the economy can use is another big hit from Obamacare going into effect.
Do you have a prayer of getting this passed in the United States Senate, do you think?
I think you always have a prayer. When at
That's
first,
a great point. You always have prayer. Yeah, that's fair. No, that's fair.
And someone you worked very closely with, Ronald Reagan, fought some fights where when it started, no one thought he had a prayer.
Yeah.
And people got energized and came together, and miraculous things happened.
But people would say, I think, the fear is they would say, well, this is, quixotic and, symbolic. It doesn't stand a prayer. This is, it has a prayer's chance, but that's all. Here's Senator Cruz. He's a great guy. Why is he wasting his time on resolutions that won't get through as opposed to maybe tailoring some that would get through? What do you say to that?
Well, let me say three things. Number one, it gets Republicans talking about the right things, which is economic growth and the need to get growth back. Number two, although we very likely don't have the votes to pass it in the Senate, there's a good chance this continuing resolution will be amended and go back to the House, and the House does have the votes to pass it.
Yeah.
If the House stood up and passed it, then we would see a very interesting situation, because if the House stands together and says, we're not going to provide funding for Obamacare while this economy is struggling so much, then you would have a real showdown. But for that to happen, that's going to take conservatives in the House standing up. But number three, there are also conservatives fighting in the states on the ground who just want to see people in Washington, see Republicans stand up and stand for something.
Yeah.
A lot of the governors are considering whether to set up exchanges. And, I think it is demoralizing to people on the ground for the people in Washington just to run away from the fight because, Harry Reid says we can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, those are good arguments, sir. Obviously, and we were playing Paul Ryan earlier, and I know you probably would have meant to include him on your list, but his budget, which will be released tomorrow, calls for a repeal of Obamacare. So it's even more of a prayer than yours.
Right. And that's exactly what we need to be doing. I applaud Paul for taking that on. That's what he should be doing, and it's why he's the leader he is.
Give me a sense, Senator. We have to let you go in a couple minutes. We're very grateful, by the way. And, we are early in the morning, so if you ever want to get something out early, we're the place to start. That's my commercial for you.
We will be back in office.
Great. What are your other priorities? You've spoken out on Benghazi, on confirmations of different people to positions. How do you state your priorities right now? 1, 2, 3. One is jobs, economic growth. What are the next
number
two?
one is economic growth.
Growth.
And within that, I'd have three sub-priorities that I think are all critical for economic growth. The first is getting spending under control and tackling our unsustainable debt.
Okay.
The second is fundamental tax reform to make the tax code much less complicated and much less burdensome.
Okay.
And the third is regulatory reform to stop the oppressive burdens that are coming from regulations that are hammering small businesses and killing jobs every day.
Okay. What do you think of the president's overtures? Do you think they're real or not, or does it matter? We have to treat them as real, right?
I think we should always be willing to listen. I think we should always treat each other with civility and respect. I'm glad that he is reaching out. That is better than what I have seen the first couple of months here, where it seemed he had no interest whatsoever in talking or working with the other side.
Right.
But I'm a big believer that actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
That if he's really interested, the day I was elected to office, Bill, it might surprise some who characterized me as this wild-eyed Tea Party fellow. But the day I was elected to office, I said, I look forward to it. I'm eager to work with President Obama if he's willing to get serious about solving the grave economic and fiscal challenges we have.
All right. We have to let you go. We'd love to keep you forever, but you promised you'll come back, so we'll hold you to that. Congratulations. We couldn't be more pleased with the work you're doing, Senator Cruz.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Bill.
Thank you, Ted.